StrayAllDay.com.
Now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is, the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, is you are better than you think you are. And this, before we get into this, let me remind you of two things. First of all, my daily motivation and Monday motivation messages guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your week. All you got to do is text me at my number 305-384-6894. Once we start sending those messages out again, when we get that going again, you'll be getting those straight to your phone. If you're a member of my texting community, it is free to join. Just text me at that number that I just gave you. It is down below in the description as well. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That is where my main focus is. And if you want to know, Dre, what's the main thing that you have going on right now? Well, we got a lot of things going on, but the main thing, if I had to just tell you one, it'll be Work on Your Game University. That is the place where I do all my coaching. That's where I work with my higher level players, my A players, the people who are top 2% performers, or those of you who are angling to join the top 2% in performance. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can read up on what we're doing, why we're doing it, who we're doing it for and with. And if it sounds like I'm talking about you, just click on the button on that page and we'll take you to the next step. Again, workonyourgameuniversity.com. All that out the way, let's get into the topic here today, which is you are better than you think you are. Now, this episode is made as a confidence booster for those of you out there who have yet to stick your neck out, throw your hat into the ring, and really put yourself out there boldly and authentically, as I describe every day when I open the show, for the opportunities that you want and that you're looking for. Now, you often cannot find out how good you are until you put yourself into a position where you have no choice but to test your limits. In other words, you got to put yourself in a position where you are risking failure in order to succeed. To succeed at your highest level, you got to risk failing. And a lot of times people don't put themselves in that position where they're risking failing. Therefore, they never become eligible to succeed. And you often can't find out how good you are until you put yourself in that situation where you could possibly fail. So today, I'm going to help you understand how this is and also why this is. Point number one, topic once again is you're better than you think you are. Number one, you have untapped potential that you have not yet explored for the simple fact of not trying. Now, you maybe thought the first point was going to be something complex. All right, this is not complex. It may be difficult for you to wrap your mind around and do something about, but it's a simple concept. Is anybody unclear on what I just said? Let me say it again. You have untapped potential within you that you have not yet explored for the simple fact of not trying. In other words, there's ability within you that you're not even aware of because you never put yourself in a position where you needed to use it. You've never put yourself in a position where you had to call on this ability. Therefore, you don't know that you have this ability. So you can't find out how far you go till you explore how far you can go. You see, if there's a limit that you believe you have in your mind and you never challenge that mental limit, you will never find out if that limit is real or if it's not. And this is the challenge that many people have, as well as the first point in today's episode. If there's a certain limit which you have put yourself into, or you have limited yourself to, let's say, for lack of a better term, up to this point in your life, you can't find out that's the actual limit until you dare to test. You got to test the boundaries. Let's find out if this boundary is a real thing. And when you find out that the boundary is not a real thing, well, now you open everything else up for yourself. But you gotta be willing to try it. You gotta be willing to test and find out, is this a real thing or is it not a real thing? And a lot of times people hold themselves back out of fear that this boundary is real. And until you're willing to test the boundary, or you come across someone else who doesn't even recognize that boundary and they just blow right past it, you're like, oh, I thought that was a boundary, but this person just walked right through it as if it didn't exist. Maybe it was me that was holding myself back. Not maybe, it was. Now that you saw somebody else do it, or someone says to you, you know what, you're playing as if this is as far as you can go, but you can actually go further than that. And when you find out, and you're like, damn, I wish I would have did this last year. Wish I would have did this last week. Wish I did this 10 years ago. I heard a trainer once say, a personal trainer, he was saying, if I'm working with someone and they are willing to go all in with me, meaning his client that he's working with, and they're willing to do everything that I ask of them, I can help them get double the results in half the time. But the biggest challenge with helping people do this, the trainer continued to explain, is that many people have these limits in their minds about what they can do and what they can't do. Well, I can't do 50 pull-ups, but I can do 20. I can't run that fast on the treadmill, but I can run this fast on the treadmill. I can't work out every day, but I can work out every day, every other day. All right? And people just have these limits that you just made up in your own mind. They're not even real. There's nothing real about these limits except that you've arbitrarily created and accepted them, or somebody gave them to you and you just arbitrarily accepted these limits, again, for no other reason than you just think this is as much as you can do. Many people never find out how far they can go because you never tried to go any further than you've been. Many people never find out how far they can go because you simply have never tried to go any further than where you have been. And as soon as you find out that the limit doesn't exist, again, it opens up a whole new world for you. And many people live their whole lives never challenging the limits that have been set upon them. The limits that are set upon you, again, are either things that you decided on your own, you just arbitrarily came up with them. Often you don't do this, or often what you do is you receive it from somewhere in your environment, whether a person told it to you, whether you just observed it, whether you thought you picked it up from someone else and that's not really what they were saying or doing, but it's just something that you kept with you because you never questioned it or challenged it or wondered aloud why they were doing it. There's an old fable of a man. Story was, man was cooking a ham in his oven, and before he put the ham into the oven, he would cut the ends of the ham off. I don't know if it was a man or a woman, but it was a married couple. One of them was cutting off the ends of the ham before they put it into the oven, and the spouse asked the other spouse, let's say the wife asked the husband, why are you cutting off the ends of the ham? And the husband said, well, I used to watch my mother cut off the ends of the ham every time she cooked one, so that's why I do it. So the wife just didn't accept that answer. She said, well, call your mom and find out why she's doing it, because it doesn't seem to make any sense. We're just wasting good pieces of ham from the ends of the ham that we could be eating. You're cutting it off and throwing it in the trash. Why don't we find out why she was cutting it off? So the husband calls his mom and asks her, Mom, my wife wants to know why you're always cutting off the ends of the ham. And mom said, well, my mom used to always cut off the ends of the ham, so that's why I did it. So now they get even more suspicious. Wife is even more suspicious. Okay, let's call the grandmom and find out why she cut off the ends of the ham. So they call grandma. Grandma, why did you cut off the ends of the ham? Because we're doing the same thing. The grandma said, I cut off the ends of the ham because my oven was so small that the whole ham wouldn't fit in there. So I had to cut off the ends because otherwise it wouldn't have fit into the oven and otherwise I wouldn't be able to cook it. The point of this little anecdote here, folks, is that many times you are picking up things from other people that are doing it for one reason and you're continuing to do the same thing that they did when your circumstances are completely different from theirs. See, this husband who was cutting off the ends of the ham, they had a big oven. All right, they didn't need to cut off the ends because their oven was big enough to hold 3 hams. Grandma's oven was too small to hold the whole ham. His oven wasn't that small. So he was copying grandma's limitations, even though he didn't have grandma's limitations. And this is how some of you are living because, again, you've picked up some bad habits from some people who had habits that maybe were necessary for their circumstances and necessary for the limitations that they had for real. And you don't have their circumstances, nor do you have their limitations, but you're living as if you do. And this is what's holding you back. This is what's getting in your way. See, we often set our limits based on the limits that, again, other people around us have. They set for themselves and or have imposed on us. So we pick up a lot of our mentalities, a lot of our mindsets, a lot of our beliefs, a lot of our negative beliefs, positive beliefs, whatever, from the people who are around us. Again, and the challenge with this is a lot of times, and all of you notice, I mean, you can look at your own parents. It doesn't matter what age you are. Your parents probably didn't have as much access. Actually, I can pretty much assure you of this. Your parents didn't have as much access to information and insight and knowledge that you have access to, because we're in this generation, let's say the last 25 years, we've had access to more information in the last 25 years than we had in all of civilization up to that point added together. So no matter what age you are, if you're listening to this right now, that means you are, internet enabled. You know how to use it. You're getting on and looking for information. You listen to a show like this, which is a personal and professional development show. Your parents didn't have access to this kind of material. They weren't just going and getting this. It wasn't just readily available to them. Now, depending on your age, maybe your parents are plugged into it as well. I mean, if you're 20, maybe your parents might be 45. They might be on it the same way. But if you're, let's say, over the age of 30, or your parents didn't have access to this when they were your age. It wasn't available. It just wasn't there. Which means the limitations that they have in their minds about certain things, you need to question and challenge those limitations. Doesn't mean everything your parents did or told you was wrong. This means you need to question and challenge it and make sure that it makes sense and it also applies to you and your situation, because not all of it does. Many people do not invest into developing themselves personally or professionally. Therefore, they never question the limits that they've been living with. Because until you invest in personal and professional development, you wouldn't even think that you have limits set on yourself, because you don't even realize that they're there. Everybody understand this? And many times when people have limits on themselves, we tend to accept the assessments that other people have given to us, even if those assessments are only based on their view of themselves. It has nothing to do with your view of yourself. But see, you never thought about what your view of yourself is, because someone else handed you an assessment. They handed you a view of yourself that you decided to accept without challenge or questioning. I suggested you question everything. Critical thinkers. I did a two-part series on the critical thinker. Let me pull up that episode number so y'all know what that is, because this is two of my favorite episodes when I broke down the critical thinker. Episodes 1826 and 1827. How to be a critical thinker and the habits of a critical thinker. One of the habits of a critical thinker is they question everything. A critical thinker questions everything. One of the habits of a critical thinker is that when someone asserts something, the critical thinker always asks the question, how do you know? If the person who made the assertion does not follow up their assertion by explaining how they know what they claim, then the critical thinker wants to know how you know that. How do you know that's true? And if the person who is making the assertion has some substance behind what they're saying, they will gladly answer the question. See, if I tell you something and you ask me, how do I know? I will happily answer your question. I'm glad you asked. Why? Because it gives me more opportunity to share with you the substance behind the points that I'm making. This is the reason why I do this show. This is the reason why we have almost 3,000 episodes of this show. If I was just telling you some bullshit, I would have ran out of material a long time ago. I can do this show every single day the way that I do without doing reruns. I've never done a replay episode. I've never ever run an episode back. I don't have to. So I can give you substance every single day. The reason why is because there's substance beneath what I'm saying. You can't make up 3,000 episodes of substance every day for 8 years. That's impossible. I don't know anybody who's done it. If there is somebody named. And I'm saying all that not to impress you, but to impress upon you. When someone has substance behind what they're saying, they will gladly explain to you why they're saying it. And if someone has no substance behind what they're saying, and you ask them, how do you know? They'll get annoyed with you or angry with you, or uh, they try to flip the situation on you and make it seem like something's wrong with you because you're questioning them. Why you got to question everything? Why you got to ask a question all the time? Why you can't believe anything that people say? Why you always got to be doing stuff like that? Any of you ever had somebody talk to you like that? Get away from those people. Don't change what you're doing. Get away from those people, because they're not critical thinkers. And or they're just throwing some bullshit at you that they can't even explain, and they don't want it to be challenged because they don't want to be challenged to think, and therefore they're getting mad at you for putting them in a position that they don't want to be in, which is that of having to think. So you're around the wrong people. So this is a mistake. I'm putting this mistake on you because you shouldn't be associating with these individuals, whoever they are. I don't care if they're your own family. Get away from them. If you can't physically get away from them, mentally get away from them. I've had many people get annoyed with me at different times for different reasons, or on different subjects rather, for the same reason. The reason being, they'll say something and I'll say, well, how do you know that's true? And they can't answer because they don't know that it's true. There's something that they decided to accept. They've gone along and repeated it, and they said it so many times they come to believe it as a truth. And then when I question and say, how do you know that's true? They don't even know how they know, because they don't know. They're just saying it, and they get mad at me because I am representing the knowledge that they don't even have, but they're claiming to know. They claim to have, but they don't have. Critical thinkers tend to have this effect on people. I don't mind having this effect on people. I don't mind somebody getting annoyed with me when I ask them, how do you know? And they can't answer. Well, I'll say, well, what you're saying is some bullshit. I want to be around some people who, if they say something, I say, how do you know? They smile and they answer the question. Now I get some new knowledge, because now they just explained to me something that I didn't know. And I wouldn't be asking if I didn't know. Now, if someone says something that I know is true, if they say something like, let's say, what's something that somebody could say that I know to be true? Somebody said something like, if you're going to write a book and you do a book with a traditional publisher, it will probably be somewhere between a year and 3 years between the time that you sign the publishing deal and the time the book comes out. I wouldn't ask them how they knew that. I might ask them because I just want to know what their experience was, but I know that that's true because I've worked with traditional publishers and I know that's about what the timeline is. I know that's true. I'm not questioning it just to be, I'm not doing it just to be, just out of sheer perversity. I would only ask, if I ask the person a question in that sense, when I already know that it's true, what they said, I would just ask because I want to know what their personal experience was, and maybe we could trade notes on what their experience was versus what my experience was, and talk about it that way, not because I'm just trying to be an annoyance or something like that. But the whole point is, you got to question the limits that other people are asserting, especially ones they're putting on you. or someone who is like you or similar to you. So if a female says, well, females have to do things this way, you should question that. Someone says you're black, so it's going to be this way, question that. Someone says you're from this country or from this state, or you're this, uh, what's the word, religious background, or you're from this country, then it means this. You should question that. Again, it doesn't mean that they're wrong. Just let them tell you why they're saying what they're saying. And if it doesn't make logical sense to you, then you should think some more about it. Maybe you don't need to keep talking to them because you may have gotten to the bottom of their well. All right, they may have given you all they know. They don't know anymore. And understand, folks, there are many more people walking around here believing shit that they have no reason to believe with no actual substance underneath it than there are people who believe things and they can actually explain it. So you got to go look for the people who can explain it. You need to go look for people who can explain things the way that I explain things to you. And again, I'm not saying that to impress you, but to impress upon you. There are other people out there who are similar to me. They will make an assertion, and if you ask them how do you know that's true, they will explain it to you, and they will happily tell you more, and they'll answer every question that you have because they're standing on substance. Most people are not standing on substance. They're just standing on things that they have chosen to believe that are mostly based in their emotions, not based in logic. You will find out that a lot of bullshit these people are throwing out are not real at all if you simply start using a 4-word question. How do you know? Just start asking that question. Next time somebody tells you something, ask them that question. How do you know? And notice their response. If they get annoyed with you or they start to stammer and they really can't answer the question, they're probably standing on some bullshit. That's why they don't want to talk. That's why they don't want you asking that question. If you ask, how do you know? And a person seems to get excited and they want to talk even more, they're usually standing on some substance. Now, doesn't mean their substance is actually accurate. They may be telling you some stuff that's not true, but at least they thought about it. All right. At least it's a positive step in the right direction. Everybody with me here? So some of the things that you want to do in your career, all right, you could do them right now if you would simply stop. If you would simply try to do them rather and make the attempt. There's some things that you say, well, I can't do it until next year or this year. I got to go get this degree or I got to get this certification. And you might be able to do it without doing any of those extra steps. You could do it right now if you're willing to try. So you got to be willing to actually try. A lot of people are simply not willing to try, and this is why they don't get the outcomes. I talked about this in episode 2362, the leapfrog theory, jumping the line of success. One of the simplest ways to jump the line of success is to stop believing all these prerequisites that you have to hit before you can go to the next level. Many of you are holding yourself back with all these prerequisites that you have set in your own mind or that someone else has imposed on you. And until you pass their prerequisites, you can't do the next thing. Do you really have to do that? Does it really have to go that way? I say it doesn't. That's my assertion. It doesn't have to go that way. But again, you got to be willing to grab your balls and say, you know what, I'm not gonna go get a certification first. I'm gonna just go straight into the game. I told you the story of Tony Robbins. Everybody knows Tony Robbins, right? The famous motivational guy, speaker, whatever you want to call him. When he was first getting into the game, he was taking a class on, I believe it was an NLP, neuro linguistic programming class, and he was ready to go coach people because he was excited about the little bit of information that he had gathered up to that point. And all his classmates said, well, you can't do it yet because you got to get certified first. And Tony said, fuck that. I'm not waiting to get certified. I'm going to do it now. And we know Tony's name. I'm not saying that's the reason we know his name, but I am saying that's the reason we know his name. Moving on, point number 2. Today's topic, once again, you are better than you think you are. Number 2, often tapping into this potential requires throwing yourself into the fire of new experiences that will make you temporarily uncomfortable. Let me repeat that. This point number 2. Often tapping into this potential requires throwing yourself into the fire of new experiences that will make you temporarily uncomfortable. That entire sentence is very important. You need to get every word of it. Rewind if you need to hear it a third time. I mentioned in point number 1, I said this. Personal trainer said, if a client will go all in and just do everything that I say and no limitations, I can help them get double the results in half the time. The challenge is trainer can't do that with every client because most clients are not all in. Most clients are holding themselves back because they don't want to deal with the temporary discomfort that will come with going all in. That's a good one too. You need to rewind that sentence again. Let me say it again. All right, so I'll give it to you again. The trainer explained that they can't get this kind of results at this speed with every single client because not every client is willing to deal with the temporary discomfort that will come with going all in. Therefore, most clients only make marginal progress, but marginal progress. They don't progress as fast as they could and as quickly as they could and as easily as they could, or easily is relative, as if they had gone all in because they don't want to. They simply they don't want to do it. This is the point. This is a concept that I want you to understand because being able to get those results requires you being temporarily uncomfortable. All right, so I told you the fun part in point number one. This is the hard part in point number two. All right, so I'm make sure I'm telling you everything. All right, so when you listen to my show, make sure you listen to everything that I say. Don't just pick and choose the parts that sound good to you. Listen to everything because you need it all in context. Just like I was on social media today and I saw some people saying some things. People like to quote the Bible is the most common book that is quoted out of context. What people do is they pull a quote or an idea out of the Bible and they'll say, well, it says this right here in the Bible. It's right here on this page and that page. But without the context that goes around it and the point that is looking to be made in the story being told, because the Bible is just one big long series of stories, without the context of what the story is trying to communicate, if you just take a little piece out of context, you can make anything sound like anything. And a really smart person is really good at this. I talked about this a lot when I talk about the race hustlers. They're really good at taking anything out of context and making it sound like anything they want. Any smart, intelligent person can take any example and make it sound like whatever they want to make it sound like. That's why you got to get things in context. So when you listen to the things that I say here, don't just take the parts that are comfortable for you. Take all of it because you need it all. If you miss the context, then you're just getting the content. The content without the context means you're going to be lost. This is how you get motivated without the foundation. Motivation without foundation leads to frustration. We just talked about that a few episodes ago, a couple weeks back. So being able to get the results that you want requires temporary discomfort. All right, challenging your limits is a temporary discomfort. The discomfort, again, may not necessarily be in the form of physical pain. So when you think of discomfort, many people think of pain, or at least I think of physical pain because I'm an athlete and I work out every day. So when I think of discomfort, the first thing I'm thinking of is, all right, my chest is going to be burning, or my lungs are going to burn. I'm going to have lactic acid in my muscles, or something physical that's going to occur. That's the default thing that I think of when I think of discomfort. But it doesn't have to be physical pain. The discomfort is about you stepping outside of your comfort zone, the actions and the habits that are comfortable for you. So it could be completely emotional. It could be completely mental discomfort. So it can show itself in the form of anxiety, stress, nervousness, embarrassment. These are all forms of discomfort. As long as you're willing to deal with those energies on a temporary basis, and temporary is relative. Temporary could be a year, temporary could be 30 minutes. You can expand your comfort zone very quickly and much further than you thought you could. Let me say that sentence again. This is the important part. As long as you're willing to deal with these energies, anxiety, stress, nervousness, embarrassment, on a temporary basis, you can expand your comfort zone very quickly and much further than you thought you could. The challenge is you have to be willing to get uncomfortable and trust that this discomfort will pay off more than the discomfort bothers you in a moment. So you have to trust that the discomfort you're going through right now will help you more in the long run than it is hurting you in the short term. So if you go to the gym and you do 10 pull-ups and I say, okay, now do 100, you know that's going to be uncomfortable for you. You know you're going to be very sore the next day. And that night, you might not be able to sleep that night because your muscles are going to be aching so bad from doing 100 pull-ups. If you believe that the long-term payoff of doing 100 pull-ups will be worth more than the temporary discomfort of the muscle soreness you're going to feel from doing 100 pull-ups, if you believe that, then you'll be willing to do 100 pull-ups. If you don't believe it, you won't do 100 pull-ups. That's a simple equation. It's as simple as that. Do you believe that this temporary discomfort is worth it? The challenge for many people is that they can never get their minds around dealing with the temporary discomfort. This is the reason why most people don't change. It is not because of lack of information, not because of lack of resources, not because of lack of talent. Those are the common excuses people have for not changing. It is because you don't want to get uncomfortable. This is the reason people don't change. They just don't want to deal with the discomfort. And the main reason many people don't want to get uncomfortable, not because you don't understand the concept of the comfort zone, is because you have not done the mathematical equation of figuring out, is this temporary discomfort worth the long-term satisfaction? If you can think on that level and get this to get into you emotionally as well as mentally, then things become a lot easier. And things for people like me, my job gets easier because I have more people who already understand this and I don't have to explain it to them or hope that they get it. Point number three. Today's topic, once again, is you're better than you think you are. Number three, confidence comes from discipline. You already know that. If you're a listener of this show, you heard me talk about that a lot. Discipline leads to confidence. Discipline requires doing things that you don't want to do, but you need to do. That's what discipline is about. It's one of the main things discipline is about. And if anyone ever asks me, you stop me on the street and say, Dre, what is the number one internal attribute that leads to success for you and for anybody else out here? The answer is always the same thing, one word, discipline. If I had to take everything that I talk about here and I had to pick one word, the word is discipline. It is doing things that you don't want to do, but you need to do, when they need to be done and how they need to be done, regardless of how you feel. That's discipline. That's what makes a pro a pro. That's the reason why everybody can't be a pro, even though there are many more people with the potential to be a pro than there are people who actually become pros, simply because they don't have the discipline to do the work consistently. They got discipline to do it, but they won't do it consistently. That's why they're not pros. If you're a pro, you got to do it all the time. You can't do it when you feel like it. Pros can't show up to work when they feel like showing up to work. You show up to work when you feel like showing up to work. You won't have work to show up to. You'll be fired. Discipline is about showing up every single day to do the work, regardless of how you feel. Period. Are you willing to do that? Sometimes you don't feel like doing the work. How many professionals listening to me right now are either at work right now, you're coming from work, or you are on your way to work and you don't really feel like going to work today? How many people listening to me right now, you don't really feel like being at work or going to work, or you didn't feel like being at work today, but you did work? How many of you had that situation? All right, so I know somebody's nodding their head right now. Sometimes the work is the work that you didn't even know would be required of you. Sometimes with discipline, it's work you know you got to do. You don't feel like it, but you know you got to show up as your obligation. And sometimes there's work that pops up that you didn't even know was going to be asked of you to be done, or asked as I'm being generous, required of you to be done, but you got to do it. Sometimes that happens. How many of you work at a job where the boss throws some work at you that you didn't even know was coming, but you have no choice but to do it? And you're annoyed, but you know that you don't have the option of not doing it if you want to keep the job. I mean, you had that situation. I have members in my university who tell me about this all the time. Like, we get on a call and they're telling me, all right, I just got a whole bunch of work thrown at me that I didn't know I was going to have to do, and I don't want to do, but I had to do it. And we got to deal with that. That's the game. Sometimes the work is more than you were expected to do, or more than you were prepared to do. And discipline is about doing it anyway. Discipline is about doing it anyway. I'm not giving you some logical formula here for dealing with that. I'm just telling you the discipline is doing it anyway. That's the mindset. The mindset is I'm going to get it done. Why? Because I'm a professional. That's it. Now, the tactical part of how you actually get it done, we can get into that. But first, we got to get the mindset clear. Are we clear on the mindset that you're going to get it done? It's not a question of if you're getting it done. It's a question of how we're going to do it. It's not a question of if it's happening. As long as we're good on that part, then we can get to the next part. Challenge for many people is they want to get to the next part. Well, how exactly do I do it? Well, first of all, let's get clear that you're actually committed to doing this, because commitment means this is happening one way or another. See, you put yourself in that frame of mind, now you're empowered to figure out how to get it done. Most people want to jump to the how part before they empower themselves with the it's actually happening part. And this is the reason, again, another reason why many people don't achieve. Because you're trying to get to the tactical part, the what steps do I take, when you haven't even mentally decided that you're even going to do it. You haven't mentally decided that you're going to climb the staircase. It doesn't matter what steps you take. You ain't going to do it. You haven't empowered yourself to activate all your resources to actually get the job done. So you ain't doing it. Don't care it doesn't matter what you get told to do. You ain't doing it. Your mind is not on the same page. Your subconscious isn't plugged into what we're doing. Therefore, you don't have access to all your resources. Therefore, you're going to come up short even if you try. So you might as well just quit. Go back to what you were doing yesterday. Go home. That's the deal. If you just took this phrase that I just said, do it anyway. Let me say it again. You want to write it down? Do it anyway. Just took that phrase and started applying it to your everyday life. You'll be a lot more consistent. You'll get a lot more done. And it will probably help you to expand your comfort zone and challenge the limits that you have put on yourself up to this point, or you have accepted to be put on you up to this point. And as you know, more discipline creates more confidence. Confidence leads to performance, performance to results, results to rewards. Let me say the phrase again. Do it anyway. Just start using that phrase. Do it anyway. I think I'm gonna do a whole episode just on that concept alone. See, this is the reason why, one of the reasons why I'm able to keep the material on this show coming, is because sometimes I'm saying something to all of you, and then I come up with something and I say, you know what, I need to do an episode just on that part alone. So I just wrote it down. I'm gonna do a whole episode on this concept called "Do It Anyway." So you expect that in maybe about 9-10 days from now. All that said, let's recap today's class, which is you are better than you think you are. This episode is made as a confidence boost for those of you out there who have yet to stick your neck out, throw your hat in the ring, really put yourself out there boldly and authentically for the opportunities that you want. Number one, you have untapped potential that you have not yet explored for the simple fact of not trying. You simply have not tried, so you don't even know that there's ability within you that you don't know about. You don't know what you don't know. This is unconscious incompetence simply because you have not tried, because you are living within limits that you have never challenged. Number two, Tapping into this potential requires throwing yourself into the fire of new experiences that guaranteed will make you temporarily uncomfortable. If you're willing to deal with that temporary discomfort, then you can get some long-term comfort that far outlasts the temporary discomfort. Number three, confidence is a result of discipline. Discipline is the number one attribute, number one asset, number one tool. If you had to ask me, all of this work on your game stuff that I talk about, if I had to boil it down to one thing, it would always be discipline. It requires doing things that you don't want to do, but you know you need to do. One phrase you're going to take with you to start applying this discipline is do it anyway. All right, you don't feel like it, do it anyway. It's early, do it anyway. It's late, do it anyway. You don't like this person, do it anyway. The bitch is getting on your nerves, do it anyway. You don't feel like dealing with your kids, do it anyway. Whatever, it's raining outside, do it anyway. You're tired, do it anyway. You just start using that phrase, do it anyway. It will change a whole lot of things for you. All that said, text me, see you in my text community. My number's down below in the description. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. You want to work with me directly, have me as your direct coach, go to WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. All the info that you need to know will be right there on that page. And then you can take the next step. If it sounds like something that'll be good for you, if it's not, that's fine. We're looking for top 2% performers only, not everybody. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all